Welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that is 3 dimensions away from Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning being called Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 2. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, released in 2025. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is once again directed by Christopher McQuarrie and is written by Christopher McQuarrie and Eric Jenderson. And the movie stars once again Tom Cruise, Haywa Atwell, Vig Rhames, Simon Pegg, Isaiah Morales, Henry Kirchner, Palm Clementoff, and Angela Bassett. The movie is essentially a sequel picking up about, I believe, like a year. I believe it's a year. It could be a couple months after the events of Dead Reckoning Part 1. And it's essentially where Ethan Hunt this time is racing against the clock because the entity is basically able to corrupt the other governments, it's going through all their nuclear arsenal, and it's going to basically become like a Skynet situation where it's going to become self-aware and, well, it already is self-aware, but it's going to become basically launch a nuclear full-scale attack and basically wipe out all humanity as we know it, unless Ethan Hunt can destroy it. While the U.S. government and the Russian government want to take over it so that way they feel like they can control it, while the thing has a mind of its own where it wants them to come find them so that way it can play them. I really was excited for this movie. I did a rewatch on all the Mission Impossible movies before this because I'm a huge fan of the Mission Impossible movies. I love them. My first experience to the Mission Impossible was probably when I was in like the 4th or 5th grade. No, actually, no, that's a lie. I was 7th or 8th grade. My teacher had brought the DVD of Mission Impossible 2 in, and we sat down and we watched it, and I've never seen a Mission Impossible movie, and I thought this was so cool. And then, of course, I ended up watching 3, and then I went back and rewatched 1, and then I watched 4. And, 4, because I saw 4 in theaters, and so I watched 4, and I really enjoyed 4. And then, of course, I saw 5 in theaters, and then I saw 6 in theaters. I didn't see 7 in theaters. I did see this one, though, in theaters. And I will say, I do still regret seeing the Dead Reckoning Part 1, Barbie over Dead Reckoning Part 1, because Dead Reckoning Part 1 was a banger. This one, I really wanted to love it, but I didn't. I feel like the last movie felt more like a Mission Impossible movie. This movie felt more like a mash between Terminator and I would say Armageddon, or something else. It feels like, or it feels more like a Jack Ryan movie or something, maybe Sum of All Fears or something like that. Because I just watching this movie, I was just like, it's good, but it's not great. If this was just a movie starring Tom Cruise playing Jack Ryan, I think people would say it's a good movie. But if it's as for like a final chapter in a Mission Impossible series, it just feels like a letdown. I was sitting here watching it, and I had heard coming up to this, because I try not to stay up reviews, and I had seen that there were people talking about this movie saying, oh, it's the worst one in the series, and oh, it's like, not as bad as 2, but it's still bad, and and then of course, the Rotten Tomatoes score dropped, and there was some positive, it was like a positive score, and so I was like, I really shouldn't focus on a Rotten Tomatoes score, but I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna go watch it. And I even got a tub of popcorn that had all. It's in, it's put up, but I just got a Mission Impossible 10, and when I was in the theater, it had all the movies around it. It had all the movies of all the crazy stunts. That's like the DVD. It's like the digital library covers. And everything has like Tom Cruise skydiving and then him like hanging on the plane and all that stuff. And I got the popcorn tin, and I'm like, it's the cool tin, and it was still worth the experience. And I still enjoy the Mission Impossible as a whole, but this one I was sorely let down with because I love the series so much. And it's just like, it isn't like, if I had seen 1, 2, and 3, I think I wouldn't have been as bummed up. But then you see bangers like 4. You see bangers like 4, 5, and 6 that are like straight up bangers. And the last one was even a banger. And you're just like, I can't believe I didn't enjoy this one, though. And I do like some stuff. Just like the only thing is, it feels like, okay, the bad guy of the movie is like the biggest action sequence in the movie is it's a chase sequence with airplane with these like little charter airplanes, and I really enjoyed that scene, and I thought that was a great scene. I was at the edge of my seat that whole time, although it does feel like it almost parallels the scene in Fallout where they have a bomb, and it's almost like the exact same plot where, oh, they have a bomb as well, and they're going to detonate the bomb. Unless Ethan's chasing in a helicopter, Henry Cavill. Only this time it's Ethan's in an airplane chasing another airplane that has Ambrose, played by Ezra Morales, and they're basically chasing each other in the airplanes. And as I will say, I really enjoyed Ezra Miles in the first one. I thought he was kind of a cartoon character in this one. Like, there is specifically a scene in the movie where he's chasing after Ethan. He's trying to run him down. Like, bro, you realize if you crash into him, you're going down too. You're both going to die. So like, you need him. I'm just like, because the whole beginning of the movie, he could not kill Ethan because he needed him. So I'm just like, you're chasing him, trying to destroy his plane, but you're going to damage your plane. You're going down with him. And then at one point in the scene, he gets, which I will say, the whole airplane sequence I loved, except for one thing, and it's so stupid. He gets on his plane, and then like the guy, he's sitting there trying to just barrel roll him off the plane, and then all of a sudden they both go upside down, and he's like, ah, ah, ah. I'm just, what the fuck is that? I'm like, where did that come from? And he just goes, ah, like, ah. I'm just like, why is he trying to scare him or something? I'm just like laughing so hard because he's just like starts freaking, like screaming out, ah! And they're too bad there's only one parachute. And then he falls in, does a Looney Tune death where he hits the side of the plane, and then he falls to death. And Ethan, but then it turns out he was a liar because there was another parachute coincidentally. And Ethan uses that, and I'm like, and I knew going into this that there's probably no chance he's going to die because Tom Cruise, doesn't really die in movies, okay? I can't think, I could probably think of like 2 or 3 movies that he has died in, like Valkyrie, which is also written by Christopher McQuarrie. And then I think of like 2 other movies that he probably has died in. Like, I want to say there's one more movie he died in. I know if I say it, yeah, I know if I just think of it afterwards, but yeah, I'm sure there's 2 or 3 movies that Tom Cruise has died in, but most movies he never dies in the movie. And I was thinking, could they really do like a No Time to Die situation where James Bond died? What if they do kill Ethan Hunt? Because I'm like, oh, he's going to die while he falls out of the plane. And spoilers if you haven't seen the movie. But he's sitting there in the plane, they're chasing each other in an airplane, and then he gets on the plane and he keeps trying to barrel roll him, and then eventually they get stuck on throttle, and then they're basically upside down both, and he finally gets the key, and then he tries to jump out of the plane, and then he hits the curve and dies. And then Ethan's trying to finally gets the plane, and the plane's damaged from like all the barrel rolls and everything, and him trying to crash into Ethan. And then Ethan just uses the extra parachute that Ambrose lied about and jumps out. And then but this parachute catches on fire apparently. And then he pulls the emergency parachute, and you don't ever see that on camera, but then somehow miraculously it opened. You didn't see it on camera, and then of course he managed to put it in there, put the virus inside the thing to corrupt it, so that way whenever they launch, so when they put the hacker into the servers, it'll self-contain it, and I thought that was a good idea. I like that it's a race against the clock. I do like that aspect. But it's just, there's not a lot of action in this movie. It's mostly just searching, and it feels more closer to Indiana Jones than it does Mission Impossible. And I honestly was saying, it mostly felt to me like Terminator, where it's like, this is Skynet that's taking over, and you got to stop Skynet, and then there's people that are like, watch the internet, that are basically incels, that like believe everything the entity is telling them, like putting all the fake news out there. And then of course they get all upset about it and everything. They want to try to, like help the entity win. To which I'm like, dude, the entity's trying to wipe you off the face of the earth, dude. Like, what's going to happen if you let it win? It's going to kill you. You're not a Terminator. I mean, literally, it feels like the plot of Terminator. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? Like at one point, the woman Angela Bassett returns as into the movie, and she plays this time the President of the United States because she was the CIA director who I guess won her election and she became president, which is cool. I mean, she's great in the movie, but like, all of a sudden her Secret Service her Secret Service agent is an incel and tries to kill her. And then, like, woman stops him from doing it. And then all of a sudden, Nick Offerman, Ron Swanson from Park and Rec, he basically pulls a gun out and shoots him dead, and dies sacrificing to protect the president. And it turns out by that point, okay, because they're thinking about, we're going to turn all our nuclear arsenal off so that way it won't be able to launch. And of course, that still apparently doesn't work, because it still is able to corrupt it to where I'm like, well, then I was just fucking stupid at that point. But yeah, But and there's so many shit in this movie that I'm like, that's stupid, that's dumb. I do think though, I do like I'm trying to think all the positive stuff I like. You know, I do like the whole underwater sequence where he's underwater, he's in the submarine with them. I thought that was great. And I like when when they bring back the guy from the first movie who was in the CIA that Ethan Hunt stole the stuff and then they transferred him to Siberia. I thought that was great that they put him, that he's in the movie and he has a huge role in the movie. Like he's not just like, oh, I threw a character poster out. I'm like, that's probably just like a cameo poster. Like, it's like, oh, he's in the movie. See? When really, no, he's in the movie for like a good chunk of the movie. Like from the second act onward, he's in the movie, and he sticks with him throughout the entire film. And I'm like, I thought maybe it's just good for the sequence. And he really is like a good character in the movie. And he even has this heart-to-heart moment with Ethan where he's like, you sent me here, and he says, I am so sorry for getting you transferred there. For whatever, he says, I will try whatever it takes to make it right. And then he's like, no, you got it wrong. You saved me. He says, you actually, I probably would have had a better life. But he goes, I met my wife, and he said, and I wouldn't be able to help you right now if I had not been transferred. And because this guy knows all about the entity and tried to warn him, he was like a whistleblower. And they kind of, and then of course, the director of national intelligence, before he was killed in the last movie, went up there and took all this information and everything. And, they basically try to ignore it, in a way, like just to cover it up. And I thought that was an interesting aspect. And also that, it doesn't really say at the first Dead Reckoning Part 1, but in this one, it shows like, okay, this happened in 2012 when the submarine was hit by the entity, and the Russians created it, and the Russians want to control it, and the Russians actually have another key to control it. They just got to get to it. And there's a cool underwater sequence with Tom Cruise that I really enjoy where he was trying to get there. And I thought at one point he was going to is he going to launch a missile out and he's going to just hang on the side of the missile? I thought, oh my God, that's going to be cool. And I thought that'd be cool. Oh, that'd be really cool if they play the Mission Impossible theme as he does it. But no, they don't do that. Instead, he just gets in the thing and he swims out of the thing. I'm like, aw. But I mean, I still thought it was really cool, and I thought the underwater sequence is really cool. And I like how they're fighting Russians on the CIA base, with the guy from the first movie, while Ethan's fighting incel on the base, and like they're talking about decompression chambers and all that. I really enjoyed that. I liked how they didn't just like, oh, well, you need this and this. They're like, there's like, he didn't just swim out there like, oh no, you need a decompression chamber, you need to blow up your blood sugar, or else you're gonna have a stroke and your lungs are gonna collapse and all that. And I'm like, I like this this stuff. This is actually real factual, and I thought that was really great about it and everything. And I just wish, Ezra Morales is not, as Ambrose, he's really barely in the movie. He's at the beginning of the movie, and then he's at the end. And I do like that they brought Shea Wigman, who plays Jim Phillips Jr., who is, John Voight's son in the movie. He basically is like, I like that he was in the movie, and I was hoping that he was like his brother-in-law, Ethan's brother-in-law or something. I was hoping for that because it seems like he knows Ethan, but instead it's just like, oh no, that's just the character from the first movie's son that went rogue, who was also the character in the original series, but played by a different actor, and so, but I thought that was fine and everything. And I just wish that, instead they're like, oh, we're cool now. And I was like, oh, that's a little anticlimactic. And I do like Palm Clementov, even though she really has nothing really to do. She's just a tag along. As long, also with that one guy who's with, Jim Phillips Jr. in Dead Reckoning Part 1, the black dude. He's basically just a tag along as well. He's just basically muscle. I do wish that Luther's death, I'm really happy that Luther finally died in this movie, because I'm like, it adds stakes to the movie, because I know they wanted to kill him off in Fallout, but he kind of like, why do I gotta die? He brought his concerns to Tom Cruise, and Tom was like, yeah, why does he have to die? And so, yeah, they did a fake out, but in this one, they finally was like, well, Christopher McQuarrie finally got his wish. I was like, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I really wish I could have enjoyed this movie all along. I just wish it could have been better. But I do enjoy, there's certain sequences in the movie I enjoy. I just think Dead Reckoning Part 1 is much better than this movie. If I had to give this movie a grade, I'm going to give it a C. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.